Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. Many thanks for making your way here to LV426 to receive your latest Alien news. I appreciate the visit, but no wandering around at night, please. Curfew is at 9, for maintenance reasons. Okay, so a couple of things to discuss here. We have new info and one rather large plot reveal that some people might find a tiny bit spoilerish. So this is just a forewarning for those who wish to remain completely unspoiled. Before I get to the big reveal that I sort of predicted in a previous video when I spoke about potential sabotage on board the Maginot seen in the teasers. And to be honest, I've always maintained that the show would delight in corporate espionage, because what else is there to tell a story about in a corporate dystopia dominated by mega corporations? But before I talk about this bit of troubling information, which is one way to put it, that has me on the fence a little bit now, and I've always been immensely positive about the show thus far. Firstly, we finally have a release date, and it will be aired on FX, Hulu, and internationally on Disney+. They say we'll receive the first 2 episodes at once, but after that, I imagine it'll be 1 per week, which is great because I'll have time to break down each episode for you guys. On a slightly sour note, it's not that far away. It's less than 3 months now, and we still don't have a trailer. We probably have more teasers than there are episodes in the first year, but whatever. I know it feels concerning for many, but I'd rather judge the show based on what the trailer will present than on the lack of a trailer so close to the release date, so hang in there, Marines. But as you can see, they've shared with us a bunch of new images from Alien Earth, most of which, I have to say, don't look very alien. This one certainly carries some of the franchise's hallmarks, but if I didn't know anything about the show and somebody asked me to guess, I'd probably just assume it was some generic sci-fi series. However, although a few of the images aren't super inspiring for me, I have a lot of faith in Noah Hawley, the show's creator, even if a handful of these images exhibit some of the problems with modern film and TV. Maybe you also notice it, but when you cast your mind back to the movies that started it all, every shot was visually rich with depth and detail, from its textured, grainy and lived-in look to its masterful use of lighting, which provided the perfect atmosphere with well-placed shadows. It all seemed tangible. Not all of these images, some I really love, like these ones here, but others, in contrast to what I just described, have that flat or sterile aesthetic we see in many modern productions. Oh well, they're just images, and this is why we need that full-length trailer to gain a better understanding of what to expect, damn it. I quite like Timothy Olyphant's android look. There's something menacingly Rutger Hauer about it. Remember how nuanced his performance was in Blade Runner? Timothy has delivered some great performances in the past, both comedic and unhinged at times, so I'm wondering how he's going to be portraying this synthetic. Hopefully with his cards close to his chest, as I quite like the idea of not knowing whether to trust him or not. I believe the actress Sandra Yee Sensendiver, seen here in one of the better looking photos, plays a senior executive within the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. This is another great image that embodies the use of that foreboding lighting which I spoke about and really drives the alien mood. Alex Lawther, who you may remember from Andor Series 1, and by the way, how great is Series 2 of Andor right now? Alex plays a soldier who goes by the nickname Hermit in Alien Earth. So sure, a bit of a mixed bag with these images, as I'm not disappointed nor am I jumping up and down. In any case, as I've been saying all along, I trust Noah Hawley to deliver something special just based on his Fargo series alone. But let's get to the meat of it all and discuss the major plot information that was released. I didn't find it particularly spoilerish, but it does tell us the reason why the ship crashes on Earth. If you didn't want to know, obviously stop watching at this point. There were 2 statements released, one being an updated synopsis that I'll get to in just a second, and the other says this. Wendy lives in Prodigy City, the company's all-encompassing HQ, alongside other hybrids preparing to usher in a new age for humankind, which Weyland-Yutani doesn't like very much. So in what can only be described as an extremely hostile corporate takeover, the company intentionally crashes one of its research vessels, the USCSS Maginot, into Prodigy City, unleashing its surviving xenomorph passenger onto Wendy, the rest of the hybrids, and everyone else now trapped in Prodigy City. Wow. This is a tough one for me to swallow for several reasons. Firstly, this whole event takes place just 2 years before Alien, before the ill-fated voyage of the Nostromo. But then we're also 27 years on from Prometheus, and 16 years past the unfinished story of Alien Covenant. There have always been debates among fans as to how much knowledge Weyland-Yutani actually had regarding the xenomorph or even the derelict and its previous occupant before and beyond the events of Alien. However, perhaps one thing we can all agree on is that information and accessibility to this species and its origin have always been portrayed as very limited in the films. After all, it was the crew of the Nostromo that supposedly first detected the warning signal emitted from the derelict on LV-426 and was sent to investigate, not a company retrieval team. We also have to assume that whatever happened to David and his sleepy colonists on board the Covenant, it's most likely that the company were kept in the dark about his intentions on the planet Orogai 6. If that was his final destination, we don't know. In other words, it's hard to ascertain what Weyland-Yutani knew about the beast at this moment in time. That being said, I find it incredibly difficult to believe that between Prometheus and Alien, we're talking 29 years, folks. Nobody from the company was sent to investigate LV-223 in the Zeta Reticuli system, especially considering that faster-than-light travel had already become commonplace by this point. What I find most puzzling about this plot reveal is that a company as determined and secretive as Weyland-Yutani would order a synthetic on board one of their own research vessels carrying copious amounts of precious specimens to crash this ship directly into a rival HQ just because Prodigy have outpaced Weyland in synthetic advancements. It's neither very discreet nor in keeping with their tight grip on possessing a specimen. And what the rival company Prodigy have essentially done is hybridize two of the most profound and challenging goals in science: human consciousness and artificial intelligence. These hybrids, some of which are seen in the images, have synthetic bodies but house a human consciousness that has somehow been transferred or merged with the artificial body. Much like our main protagonist, Wendy, who has the consciousness of a child, we're told. So I'm not sure if this means that these new synthetics have been designed to act like donors for terminally ill people as well as the elderly wishing to extend their lives. I can understand the frustration among the top brass over at Weyland, especially as immortality was something that Peter Weyland died in the pursuit of trying to achieve. Plus the fact that Weyland's company after the Yutani merger was the first to build what was considered to be advanced human synthetics, completely indistinguishable from humans. The problem is, I just don't buy that the company would be so reckless as to crash one of their own ships into Prodigy City. Do they really have no idea of the value of at least one particular organism being transported on the Maginot? I mean, if they don't, and they honestly haven't connected any dots back to the prequel events, it could explain why Order 937 issued to Ash became of significant importance, and may imply that by the end of this show the xenomorph is lost to the company. Everything is covered up and hidden from the media, and therefore the public. So whatever plays out in the aftermath of the crash landing and the inevitable containment breach within Prodigy City, I can only speculate the story of Alien Earth itself will be self-contained, because clearly there were no xenomorphs on Earth in 2122, when Ripley set out to feed us on board the Nostromo. Otherwise, why the urgency in bringing this specimen back? So with all that said, the most obvious theory is that in 2122, when Mother and Ash realised what they had discovered on Acheron, the company instantly recognised its value and instructed Ash to follow Order 937, an already established order after what went down on Earth 2 years prior, for such a circumstance as the one the crew of the Nostromo found themselves in. If Alien Earth does conclude with no Xenos left to analyse and reproduce, I also have to assume they're not going to continue with this contentious theme involving the black pathogen, for one simple reason really. If you have this substance, you have access to everything. You don't require the xenomorph anymore. That is perhaps my only reason for taking issue with the introduction of this biological mutagenic accelerant. I don't care where Ridley takes his next Alien film, and I look forward to it. I'll go watch it at the cinema to see how David's story concludes. But it's very hard to deny the destructive effect it has on the fear and mystery that once surrounded this elusive creature. Lastly, the latest synopsis gives us a little more to chew on. It reads, Earth is dominated by the corporate interests of 5 governing companies: Prodigy, Weyland-Yutani, Lynch, Dynamic, and Threshold. Each of those 5 corporations in racing to unlock the key to immortality, advancing human longevity through the development of synthetic life and cybernetics. But things heat up when Prodigy's CEO announces that the company has managed to synthesize those two fields and create the very first hybrid form of life, Wendy. Well, now we know the most prominent corporations and what they're called. They are not exactly the most creative names for Weyland-Yutani's competitors, if truth be told, and a big part of me wanted the name Seegson to pop up on that list. I'd take a working Joe over a David artificial person any day of the week. I mean, they only went wrong that one time, right? Anyhow, I've given up predicting when the main trailer will drop, but just know that I'll be there to dissect every piece of it I can. I might be wrong about some things, or you might disagree with me, that's all part of the fun. But I care about this franchise, and the passion to discuss and analyse will always be there. Dude, signing off.